I'll try and help out.
Okay. I'd like to call to order the board meeting for the Sacramento Metropolitan Fire District for Thursday, July 10th. And we'll begin with the Pledge of Allegiance.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
The open session meeting is videotaped for cablecast on Metro Cable 14, replayed on Saturday, July 12th, 2014 at 1 p.m. and Monday, July 14th, 2014 at 6 p.m. on Channel 14. Webcast at www.sacmetrocable.tv. Open session meetings are also available for viewing on the district's website at www.metrofire.ca.gov. An opportunity for the public to discuss matters of public interest within the jurisdiction, including items on or not on the agenda, is provided. Board Clerk, do we have any?
No, there are no speakers this evening.
All right, thank you. Moving then to the consent agenda.
Mr. Chair, I move consent agenda.
I have a motion and a second. I have a motion and a second and a third and a fourth. Would the board clerk please call the roll?
Director Monk?
I'm going to abstain.
Director Scheidegger?
Aye.
Pearson?
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
Jones?
Aye.
And Orzali?
Aye.
Motion passes.
At this time, we have a change in the posted agenda. We're going to go into closed session. So, that said, we will go to closed session. Returning from closed session, legal counsel.
Yes, thank you, Director Orzali. The board met in closed session for conference with legal counsel regarding anticipated litigation as shown on the closed session agenda. No action was taken by the board.
Thank you. Moving now to presentations. Captain Vestal.
There we go. Thank you, Mr. President and members of the board. We have an update on the Community Wildfire Protection Plan, the CWPP as we've abbreviated it and as we've been here before. Tonight's presentation is going to focus on the initial study of mitigated negative declaration, or the ISMND, and take you through how we got to this point from the start of the grant up until today and up until the next board meeting in 2 weeks on July 24th, where we're going to be requesting some action. As you know, we received a FEMA grant under their Assistance to Firefighters grant program, the Fire Protection and Safety subsection, and that was for just under $1 million with about a 20% match by Metro Fire. We identified a increased incidence of wildfires in 2013, and a need for better planning and better protection of the community. So what this really focused on was how to protect houses better, how to protect the community better, and things that the community can do to be more resilient, not so much of the suppression and operation side. We began planning in earnest during the summer of 2013 and have moved full speed ahead up until now through summer of 2014. And like I just mentioned, we're going to bring this to you on July 24th for the final action and completion of the project. Currently, we're in the 30-day public comment period for the ISMND. And that is a CEQA-compliant process. CEQA stands for the California Environmental Quality Act. And anytime you do any project that might have any kind of significant environmental outcome, the initial study or the IS is required. If the IS finds that there is going to be a significant effect, then the MND comes into play, which is the mitigated negative declaration. Those study any specific actions to reduce those effects to a less than significant level. Combined, that becomes known as an ISMND, that entire document. So RIS concluded that project would not result in significant environmental impacts after the implementation of certain mitigation measures. And as such, the MND is the appropriate document for compliance with the requirements of CEQA. There's different levels of that. And at the end of this presentation, our environmental consultant, Mike Parker, could bring a little bit more information, whether the different levels that we consider an EIR or ISMND, for instance. So the purpose of the ISMND is to present the board and the public the environmental consequences of the proposed project of the CWPP. The CWPP is not one project, rather it's a conglomeration of several different types. We have vegetation clearing projects, we have defensible space, weed abatement type issues that we're addressing in it, also different things we can do for fire prevention, recovery, and a whole bunch of different things. And every facet of the effects were considered: air quality, water quality, biological concerns, hazardous materials, for instance. I previously said we're in a 30-day public review period and comment period. That ends on July 14th. We posted notices in the Sacramento Bee on our website through the State Clearinghouse. Notices were posted in certain places on the American River Parkway from our friends at the Sacramento County Regional Parks. After we take all those comments, we're going to sit down with our consultants, come up with the responses, and that's what we're going to bring to you on July 24th. At that time, we can adopt the MND, the Mitigated Negative Declaration, and approve the proposed project. We could take additional environmental studies, or you as the board could deny the project. The summary of the findings were no impact to mineral resources, population and housing, and public services, less than significant to several others such as air quality, transportation, traffic, greenhouse gases, recreation, and less than significant after mitigative measures such as biological resources, hydrology and water quality, cultural resources, and hazardous materials. And as I said, at the next meeting, we will request that we either adopt the ISMND and approve the CWPP. And with that, I'll open up any questions for either myself or Mike Parker with Ascent Environmental.
Okay.
And I'll also make note, too, the entire CWPP draft and the ISMND is available online.
My question is, so we've had our experts look at this and say that it's good, and we adopt it and everything. Not that this would ever happen, but let's say they're the other side, the environmentalists get together and they have their experts look at it and say, no, that's not good. Now, if they do this before we do anything, maybe we could meet with them and adjust it. But let's say we've already started the clearing or something to that effect. Now we're looking at lawsuits maybe or not.
Ideally,
who else approves this M&D is what I'm getting at. I mean, I'm going to go off of some expert. I would like another government agency, environmental government agency, to say, your MND is a good, solid, and we stand behind it, rather than just, I don't know, maybe the other directors up here have a better handle on environmental issues than I do, but I don't feel comfortable making that decision that this is a good.
CAL FIRE has to be one of the signatories on the CWPP at the very end, and the way that process works is it gets actually added to their unit plan. Amador El Dorado's unit adds that to their unit action as we're part of their administrative unit. County Park signs off on it, Sacramento County, cities of Rancho Cordova and Citrus Heights. So there are other governments that will weigh in and actually sign and approve it because they have projects that occur in their areas.
And to follow on, because that's an excellent point that Director Pearson brought up, would those signatures come in prior to any work being done?
Absolutely.
Okay.
Anything to add, Mike?
Yeah. I just wanted to add, as far as litigation goes, there would be, assuming the notice of determination is filed timely, and that's within 5 business days of the approval, there would be a 30-day statute of limitations period for anyone to see the project, and that is typically done before any work is started.
And I meant no slight on your expertise, I'm sure. I just know experts always get challenged. There's experts on every side.
Yeah, well, that was part of the deal. Mr. Chair, I have some questions, please. Hi, Captain Vestal. How are you?
Good. How are you?
Would you please go back to the slide that showed no impact, no significant impact, no significant impact with mitigation? Thanks. For example, in our, just generally speaking, under less than significant impact with mitigation measures, we have 5 areas listed there. Within the report, how is like there a page on each? Is there are there 20 pages on each one? How?
Much shorter than 20. Most are about a page to a page and a half.
Well then, thank you. No, I'm sorry. What say your last name?
Mike Parker with Ascent Environmental.
How do you do, Mr. Parker? Thank you for coming.
Very well.
Well then, for example, could you give me a mitigation measure? Okay, give me an example of a hydrology and water quality that would have a significant impact, and the example of potential mitigation that we would do to make it less than significant. Or if another one pops up sooner, that's fine. I want an example of
no, that's good.
what
I'm
we're
just,
talking about.
I want to get this right, so let me
Thank you, Mr. Parker.
find right where it is for you. Well, all the mitigation measures in this document are summarized in the front. So here I will tell you what the mitigation measure is for hydrology. That's going to be the water quality impact. And this is for construction-related impacts for a new fire access road that's proposed in the American River Parkway. And this one is basically to implement a mitigation that's already included in the American River Parkway Plan, EIR, and that's for all new construction projects within the Parkway have to incorporate design components within the latest version of the Sacramento County Guidance Manual for Development of Erosion and Sediment Control Plans, has some grading type mitigation in there, best management practices, those types of measures.
So more attention paid to construction of a fire road in terms of runoff than
Right, exactly.
perhaps in the past.
Exactly.
For example. Okay.
And I will add that in addition to mitigation measures, in the project description here, we have a whole set of special environmental features that will be incorporated into the project, including a lot of best management practices, including for prescribed burns to make sure that we don't have runoff from the burned areas that would pollute the river or increase sedimentation.
Mm-hmm. Okay, no, thank you. And that I can find that in the report. I can find
Yes,
the
you can.
details in this.
That would be in Section 2 project description.
Okay, thank you very much. And then second item, we've already had a 30-day comment period. Was that the equivalent of a notice of preparation, or is this equivalent of a draft EIR? What was this comment period equivalent to?
Let me rewind a little bit and talk a little bit more about the CEQA process. So Chris mentioned the preparation of an initial study. An initial study is basically a document to figure out what are the potential impacts of this project. Are we dealing with any significant environmental impacts? Once you complete an initial study, if you note that you will have significant impacts, and those are typically impacts to the environment that exceed a given threshold of significance. If you find out that you do have a significant impact and you've implemented feasible mitigation measures and you can't bring the impact below that significance threshold, then that is a significant and unavoidable impact. If you're dealing with such impacts, you have to prepare an environmental impact report, because that is the only way that any lead agency has to adopt a statement of overriding considerations. So in this case, we did an initial study. We found that incorporating all the mitigation measures would reduce all impacts to a less than significant level, and therefore a 30-day public comment period is appropriate, and adoption of a mitigated negative declaration is appropriate.
And then do we get what type of response do we get from our 30-day public comment?
After the public comment period, this is where the mitigated negative declaration differs from the EIR. Since there are no significant impacts for the public to review, an EIR would have a 30-day notice of preparation period telling the public we're going to prepare a big EIR document for this project, and then there's a 45-day typical public review period. After the 45-day period, usually the final EIR is prepared 10 days in advance of a hearing, and all the comments are given to agencies and often the public, and that is reviewed. That whole document, the draft and final EIR, are reviewed by the lead agency, and the determination is made to either certify the document or not. The M&D process is a little different. There is no notice of preparation period. There's a 30-day public comment period on the document itself, and then there's no equivalent to the final EIR. What the consultants do is prepare responses to individual comments like you would see in a final, but it becomes part of, typically, and I'm talking typically here, various agencies do it a little different, but for this, we would provide the responses to all the comments in the staff report that the board would see for the approval hearing.
And are all those comments available online with the
Well, the comment period's not closed, so we have not responded to comments yet.
Okay, thank you.
Director Shadid?
And at the end of that 30-day period, and the comments from the public or whomever can be received, did you say earlier that then what is the challenges that can be led at that point? The
challenges will be made at the hearing. Prior to any litigation is received. So outside the court, if the commenters attended the hearing, they would, be able to challenge any response given to their comment, and your staff and consultants would be here to provide you any responses to their responses.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chairman, if I may.
Please, Director Kelly.
Gentlemen, thank you for the presentation. Let's, if you will, imagine that the CWPP was adopted 3-4 years ago, and work had begun. How would that have changed the events that occurred on July 4th at the American River behind Cal Expo?
Specifically, because that was outside of Metro Fire,
Not at all.
I'd have to say not at all. Theoretically, if that fire occurred further north on the Parkway, or in an actual scenario where Sac City applied for the same grant and hopes to conduct a very similar project, it would have done a lot. Sac County Regional Parks had approached us about using our dozer program to build some fire roads and fuel breaks. We've had a lot of discussion with Sacramento City Fire Department, along with Sacramento County Regional Parks, about trying to apply for some different funding and do a lot of other things that just haven't happened yet. The utility companies have some funding for vegetation projects underneath or around their power lines. That's one of the projects that we have listed in here to work on for the future. So in my opinion, there could have been a pretty big beneficial effect.
Gotcha.
But specifically because our project didn't exactly go down that far,
Okay.
none.
All right.
I would touch on the other thing with a lot of our projects in here, because we're not a huge landowner or land overseer, a lot of these projects are still under the control of the actual landowner, one of the biggest being Sacramento County Regional Parks. when we do a project, it still falls under their control to some degree. They can refer back to our document, and because they were part of the stakeholder group, they can use our document as part of their process to approve and validate and certify. But they're still the landowner and the responsible party. So we're a big asset, a big ally for all the projects in here, but we're not exactly the 100% responsible party for them.
Thank you.
Any further questions? Gentlemen, thank you very much for this presentation.
Thank you, President.
Moving then to the action items. First item is the industrial disability retirement with Chief Wells.
Good evening, directors. Mark Wells tonight sitting in for Fire Chief Kurt Hinke. After a discussion last meeting in closed session on June 26, 2014, we're asking for the board to adopt a resolution finding engineer Liz Arianes has suffered a job-related injury and directing our staff to work with engineer Arianes to her industrial disability retirement process with CalPERS. We're looking for a resolution for that tonight.
Okay, and we have a motion.
And I'll second.
Have a motion and a second. Would the board clerk please call the roll?
Director Monk,
I'm going to abstain.
Scheidegger,
Aye.
Pearson,
Aye.
Kelly,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
and Arzali.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Moving then to item 2, California Fire and Rescue Training Authority reimbursement agreement, aircraft relocation with Larry Davis.
Directors, Larry Davis, Chief Development Officer. This item is a request for approval of a reimbursement agreement that we've negotiated with the California Fire Rescue Training Authority. The purpose of the reimbursement agreement is to reimburse us for our actual costs in relocating the Federal Express donated 727 that we have out on the ramp at Mather Airport. So it's been out there for a while, and while we were doing the improvements out at Zinfandel, improvements in Zinfandel are done, and it's now time to move the aircraft out there. And we've gotten some quotes, and we're ready to move forward with that process. This would make available the funds to pay for that.
So moved.
And
I
I'll
have a
second.
motion and a second. Is that correct? We have a second?
Yes, sir.
Okay. I have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call a roll?
Director Monk,
Aye.
Scheidegger,
Aye.
Pearson,
Aye.
Kelly,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
and Arzali.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Moving then to item 3, fiscal year 2014-15 and 15-16 preliminary budget for simulator funds.
Good evening, directors. My name is Ron Empedrad, controller for the district. And before you is an action item to adopt a preliminary budget for the simulator fund. The California Exercise Simulation Center is in the final stages of its completion and was originally anticipated to be completed by June 30, 2014. However, certain aspects of the project were not completed in time, but will be completed in July 2014. Therefore, we need a preliminary budget for the simulator fund to authorize the district to spend the remaining funds in July of 2014. The requested budget expenditures is $602,202, which will be funded by reserves carried over from the prior fiscal year. I'll be happy to answer any questions.
Please, Director Pearson.
As I read this, it looked as though the grant will expire July 31st, 2014. Is that correct?
That is correct.
So, I mean, I know they gave us their best estimate that it'd be done by July, but they also said it'd be done by June. So my fear is maybe something gets lost in transit, you know, whatever happens, we would be holding the bag on this, right? I mean, the equipment's coming, we need it. So if we don't get it in by July, end of July, then we have to pay for it out of our budget, right?
Well, let me jump in there, and I know Larry Davis has been shepherding that project, and I believe it's very close to conclusion at this point. So Larry, if you could inform that.
Because and maybe Larry can answer this too as a follow-up. Because if we're not compliant with the grant, then we'd have to give all the money back?
No, well, let me just say this, and it is coming right down to the wire. I mean, the completion date was June 30th, and that's why we had left it in the 13 budget, and or the previous year budget, and we are in the acceptance process as we speak. It's very, very close. I am nervous about it, you know, candidly. I mean, it's just because it's just coming right down to the wire. So we've got to get it, you know, accepted and get it all, you know, ready to go, and then so there is a bit of a squeeze play coming down to the wire. So we can, you know, I'm keeping an eye on it every day, and it's really close. And we'll also have a 24 month warranty period. So I'm kind of balancing that also. But is it a squeeze play? Yes, it's a squeeze play.
So if I can just give me your if you put this on a percentage scale, what do you think the chances are that this comes to completion as we intend?
Well, I mean, and this would be my strategy. I'm going to give it a few more days, and then if I'm still uncomfortable, I'm going to go and request an extension of the grant to give us some more time. So that would be an option also. So, however, with an extension of a grant, you're never guaranteed that it'll be extended.
Mm-hmm.
So
that next question then, if we don't approve this, what happens?
Then we'll be unable to pay the contractor who's already working and more than substantially complete. I mean, I would say that's accurate. They're more than substantially complete. There's just some functionality in it. This is an audiovisual IT project, and so there's some difficult to grasp items that need to be addressed.
Is there some other aspect of this that we're not considering? What I mean is, we don't approve this tonight, the project stops.
Well, right now we have an agreement with the contractor to pay this, and we were unable to we paid everything that they had invoiced up until the 30th, and this gives us the ability to pay the contractor in the next fiscal year. So
my concern is that we're in a circumstance of now approving monies for work that's already been done.
Well, it hasn't been invoiced.
But it has been done.
I mean, it's substantially complete, but it's not complete. It's electronics. So installing the equipment, until it's all functioning, it's not complete. So the contractor in 13 gave his estimate of what the completion was and invoice for that. And then now this is for 14, for the next budget. But they haven't stopped working, and they kept working to complete the project.
Okay, was there some point in the administration of this where we should have done something differently?
I don't think so, no.
Okay, I was just thinking maybe this action should have happened 3 months ago or 6 months ago, or we got out of sequence somehow.
I don't think
Yeah,
so.
just to jump in here a little bit, just so I make sure I quantify this so it's clear. I mean, at the end of the day, we're really close to this thing being wrapped up, like done, and I have 20 days left in the month to make sure that happens. Is that correct?
That's correct.
And so we're at the very end here where they're trying to wrap this thing up. I think to quantify it, we need to have the money transferred at this time to ensure that we can meet that deadline. And Larry, what would your estimation and probability, if that comes down to the wire, we need a grant extension, in the federal government's eyes, are they really going to scrap a project that's 2 days away?
I don't think so.
I don't believe that's-
But I never count on an extension until I have it. But given the set of circumstances and how close we are to being completed, I don't anticipate them failing to extend it or us getting the project completed, either one. I mean, in both of those, but.
Okay.
I would agree. And Larry's working tirelessly on the weekends and having them jump. I believe this is going to come in on time.
Awesome.
And Mr. Chair, I think what we're being asked to do here is to comply with what was recommended by our Finance Division a couple years ago in terms of making an accrual process versus cash in, cash out process. So when we get these invoices, it will be in the 14-15 fiscal year. So for the bookkeeping purposes, for accounting, generally accepted accounting principles, we need to make it accrual basis so that we need to move this payment from 13-14 into 14-15, and I believe that's what we're being asked to do. And for the second issue, I think, in terms of the grant extension, we got a defensive line with Mr. Davis and Mr. Empendod. I think that's a pretty good D line, and I have confidence we'll get it done in the next 20 days.
I do too.
I would
Director
just add to
Scheidegger.
that as was just stated, I don't think this is new money. This is the money that we'd already allocated.
Yes, this is
And secondly, the fiscal year it goes through September, so these funds would be within that fiscal year, if we did have to seek an extension for a project that's been accepted and approved. So I think the chances would be pretty good. So we're not asking for new money, and I think the chances of an extension, if it were needed, and we're saying it probably won't be, but if it were, I think would be pretty solid within that year. So I'll move that we accept.
And
I
I'll
have a
second.
motion, a second. Have a second?
Yes, sir, right here.
Okay. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Director Monk,
Aye.
Scheidegger,
Aye.
Pearson,
Aye.
Kelly,
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
and Orzali.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Moving then to item 4, budget amendment for the fiscal year 2013-14 mid-year budget for general fund and 212A for additional labor expenditures.
Before you again, directors, is an amendment for fiscal year 2013-14 budget for the general fund. In order to ensure that the general fund has enough budget to cover wages and benefits that were incurred in fiscal year 2013-14, we're requesting an additional $1.15 million to cover deployment expenditures and constant staffing increases that occurred in the last quarter of fiscal year 2013-14. A majority of this $1.15 million will be reimbursed to us, but not in fiscal year 13-14, but in fiscal year 14-15. In addition, we are also requesting an additional $83,000 to pay unanticipated retirement charges. That would bring us to a total budget requirement of $1,233,000, which will be funded from our operating reserves. At this point, I'd be happy to answer any questions.
Questions?
No, Mr. Chair, I would like to move the staff recommendation. This is again accounting to make it accurate and appropriate accounting procedures.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Director Monk,
Aye.
Scheidegger,
Aye.
Pearson,
Aye.
Aye.
Jones,
Aye.
and Orzali.
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Sure. Moving then to budget amendment, 2013-14 mid-year budget for General Fund 212A.
And I think, and actually Ron will help me there when I get to it if we have any questions, but basically this is a mid-year budget to the general fund. A total labor budget at last mid-year was $135,321, or $269 was included. And in order to ensure that the district has adequate labor budgets to cover all the wages and benefits, including overtime pay, in fiscal year 2013 and 14, an additional $3.6 million is required to be added to the labor budget. Approximately 2.4 of that will come from a current reserve, while the remaining will be, of 1.2 will be funding from the operating reserves. So tonight we just recommend that approval of the attached resolution to amend the mid-year budget for 2013-14 reflecting these costs.
Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I move staff recommendation to approve the attached resolution to amend that mid-year budget for 2013-14.
I have a motion.
Second.
I have a motion and a second. Would the clerk please call the roll?
Director Monk?
Aye.
Scheidegger?
Aye.
Pearson?
Aye.
Kelly?
Aye.
Jones?
Aye.
And Rosali?
Aye.
Motion passes.
Thank you.
Thank you. Moving then to the President's report. There is no report from this evening, so we can move then to the Fire Chief's report.
Okay, good evening again. Chief Hinckley is actually on his way back from Burbank. He's at the California Metro Fire Chiefs meeting. He'll be back later this evening. We'd like to actually congratulate on the 3rd of this month, last week, we had the Academy class graduation for 14-1. We had 34 graduates that are very eager to be out in the world right now on their duty assignments. It should be noted that I believe it was 24 actually came through the single role program, and it was really a good evening for Metro Fire. It was a project that we started, and the single role program was developed, and a bunch of these folks came through exactly as designed and are now working as firefighters for us out in our fire stations. So I'd like to congratulate them and their families, and especially the cadre that spends a lot of time, the training division and the operations division that spends a tremendous amount of time working with those recruits. And so it's actually a good evening for all of us when the graduation comes forward. Also on the 7th and 8th of this month, the Las Vegas and the North Las Vegas command staffs came up with their union representatives and met with Metro Fire for the day, actually a day and a half, and they reviewed our EMS system. And thank you to the EMS Chief Johnson and Chief Clough and Chief Holbrook and company. They, again, just something that's a tribute to our agency where folks from outside the state even are coming here to see what it is that we're doing, and they're trying to emulate it. And so kudos to the folks working hard in our agency to develop those programs. Also, I'd like to say when I was on the 8th, 2 nights ago, we actually had the Anatolia refund workshop out in the Anatolia subdivision area, and it was based on the Slough House tax issue. I would like to say that it was very successful, despite what you might have seen in the media. I was out there at the end. Our PIO, Brenda Briggs, and Ron Imperdrad were out there, and our PIO meaning Captain Item. She's not just the PIO, she's Captain Item, and very, very energetic. They did a fantastic job. Assemblyman Cooley was out there. It was actually his sponsored event. We were out there in support. They helped a number of citizens out there go through their tax statements and determined if they were eligible or not. It was actually very well received. The people were very appreciative of the hands-on workshop that was provided. So I'd like to thank our staff and Assemblyman Cooley's office especially for facilitating that event. Upcoming events on the 14th of this month, it would be next Monday. The Single Role Paramedic Academy 14-2 will commence. We'll have 27 more recruits. We're just really a well-oiled machine here, ending one, starting another. And I would like to welcome them to the process. On July 15th through the 18th is actually our fire camp. As you know, a very successful camp that we do every summer, brought to you by Brenda Briggs and Company and a host of volunteers that work very hard. 64 kids will be participating in that program this summer or next week. On the 26th of August, we need to save the date. It's the Sacramento Metro Public Safety Foundation Swing for Public Safety Golf Tournament, and that'll be at the Rancho Marietta Country Club North. And there'll be a lot more information coming out about that, but I'll put that on your calendars. Also in retirements, I'd like to congratulate Renita Young. Renita has been an office tech with us and worked in various capacities, most recently in the community risk reduction. She'll be greatly missed. Another important member of our group leaving with institutional knowledge, and we have some new folks coming in and big shoes to fill. We have a recruitment out currently for a computer systems technician. The final closing date on that is on the 15th of July at 5 p.m., and it's open to both internal and external applicants. We have an office technician recruitment going on, also closing on the 15th of July at 5 p.m. for internal and external applicants. And then we have our promotions. On the 30th of June, Battalion Chief Greg Casantini was promoted to Battalion Chief, so congratulations to him. And tonight in our audience, we have newly promoted Assistant Chief Maurice Johnson. Would you like to wave? In the EMS division. And of course, the wave. And Assistant Chief Brian Shannon, who is large enough he doesn't need to wave. And no, I mean that in a good way. He's assigned to operations on the B shift, and we're really excited to have both of them in the group, and excellent addition to that assistant chief group. On the 7th of July, we promoted Battalion Chief Chris Quinn, and then on the 11th of July, we promoted Captain Jonathan Davis and Captain Ryan Manfredi. And then we'd also like to congratulate the 14 captains that completed the BC examination process in general. So a lot of things going on, a lot of movement in the agency, as you can tell, but very exciting times for a lot of folks, and so congratulations to all. And with that, that concludes the report.
Thank you.
We good?
Oh, please.
Mr. President, members of the board, Chris Holbrook, Operations Chief for Metro Fire. It has been quite a busy 2 weeks since our last board meeting with 3,833 incidents. In addition to those incidents, 3,406 training hours were logged, 26 public education events were held, and 73 inspections were accomplished. Relative to EMS, of those 3,833, actually there were 3,016 EMS incidents with a transport ratio of 73.9%. Again, that is a tremendously high transport ratio. At the request of one of the directors, I would like to tell you a little bit about the 4th of July. In the last 6 months, from January 1st to June 30th, we average about 243 incidents a day. On the 4th of July, we upped that by a good 100 and went to 333 incidents. In those 333 incidents, there were 16 structure fire responses. Each one of those responses puts 9 apparatus on the road. So you can imagine, with 300 incidents and that many apparatus responding, it was quite a busy day. As you can imagine, with fireworks, between 9 p.m. and midnight is the busiest time. During that time, 180 minutes, there was over 1 incident per minute added to the rolls. And so you literally had, at one point, almost every piece of apparatus in this jurisdiction on the road doing a very coordinated shuffle, and my hat's off to the men and women of the agency for their excellent work. In those 14 days, there were 20 confirmed structure fires, and that is up over 33%, also indicative of the time of year. And in closing, actually tonight, something we don't normally see in this region until August. Tonight we are under a red flag warning for dry lightning in the valley and the foothills around us. This will expire tomorrow morning, and actually the way that it actually occurs, tomorrow morning every agency will put aircraft up and look for smokes in remote locations because of that threat. So with that, that concludes my report. Oh, by the way, I cannot forget the fact that Director Kelly rode along on the 4th of July and was integral, and I actually heard him in another county at one point. So my hat's off to Director Kelly for helping us out on the 4th of July. So that concludes my report.
Chief, I have one question for you. Did I have that number right? 3,800?
3,833.
Isn't that something approaching 1,000 more than we typically average?
No, the 3,833 is in the last 2 weeks. And so that's actually, it is higher, but it's not the highest we've ever had either.
Oh, it's not the highest we've ever had?
No.
Wow.
Still considerably busy.
That's a lot. Yeah, thank you so much. Moving into General Counsel's report.
No report.
And firefighters local 522. Seeing no report. We then move into committee and delegates report. The executive committee did not meet this week, and we do not presently have a meeting scheduled, although there will be one within the next two meetings coming up. Moving then to the Communications Center JPA. Chief Cockrum.
President Arzali, Director Scott Cockrum, Deputy Chief of Support Services. Before I start, if you don't mind, I'd like to just thank Chris Vestal for the presentation he did today, Michelle Cummings and Leslie Miller. I think it just goes to show the depth that we have in our organization to be able to put together such a complicated process for us. And also thank you to you. You guys had some very informed questions today, and we very much appreciate that, and the fact that you're engaged in that process with us. Today we had a board meeting for the Communications Center where we accomplished quite a few things, actually. We accepted the third amended Joint Powers Agreement, had finally gone through all of the boards of the different cities in Cosumnes, and so that's completely finished now, and that's been signed and adopted. Also, very happy and pleased to notify you that the labor negotiations for Local 150 and Local 856 have been completed, and we ratified both of those. They were, we got some 4-year agreements out of those. Teresa Murray, the executive director, put that together, and very well done. The union and the negotiator, her, had a very good and easy negotiation, and we're very pleased to put that behind us. These things have been contentious over the years, and they're working. The way that they're working over there now is so cooperative that we just can't be any more pleased. We also discussed today her evaluation. We'll be putting that out next board meeting. We've also today approved the Fire Service Medical Director's RFP, so that RFP will be posted within the next 2 weeks out for that. And that'll conclude my report. Any questions? Yeah. Yes, sir.
Do you mind?
No, please.
I don't want to put you on the spot, but I'm just curious because we ran 3,800 calls and 333 on the 4th. What did the dispatch center dispatch on the 4th? Because they do other agencies. Do you have any idea roughly what? I mean, that's got to be astronomical number.
They provided us a spreadsheet of the last, I think, 10 or 13 years of all of the volume for each district. So we do have that. I don't know if we have that handy.
972 calls were dispatched.
Wow. They were busy. Keeping track of all those units moving around, that's impressive.
They are doing a really good job. We're very pleased with the progress of them.
Oftentimes dispatchers are forgotten, all the hard work integral part of the service. Thanks.
Okay, thank you.
Moving then to the California Fire and Rescue Training JPA with Director Kelly.
The California Fire Rescue Training JPA last met on the day of our last board meeting, and I reported out that evening. And I believe some of that was more or less discussed this evening, reimbursements from the JPA to Metro Fire for various things. We will meet again on September 18th at 90320 Tech Center Drive.
Thank you. Moving then to the Finance Committee with Director Jones.
Thank you, Mr. President. We had no finance committee meeting tonight. However, our next one is scheduled for August 14th, 5 p.m. in these chambers.
Thank you. The Policy Committee with Director Pearson.
We have not met since our last meeting, and we have no meetings scheduled.
Thank you. Board members' questions and comments. So moving then to Director Jones.
Thank you very much, Mr. President. Thank you and congratulations to each and every person who studied, worked hard, and went through the process for promotional examinations to either get promoted or to make the list, and then an extra congratulations to those who have been appointed so far. That shows a lot in terms of future commitment to this district. I recognize that effort that it takes to participate in these promotional tests and examinations. So congratulations to each and every one.
Thank you. And Director Kelly.
Yes, as it was mentioned, I did participate on a ride-along on the 4th of July, and I would highly recommend it. I can't imagine wanting to be home instead of the firehouse on a 4th of July ever again. Responded to a car fire. Caught adjacent brush fire. Next thing we knew, 2 power poles are on fire, and then it put strain on the electrical system, and breakers blew on the pole out on this was Fulton and Cottage. I don't know if I've heard an explosion that loud in a long time. Outside of that, we ran to grass fire up in Placer County, just on our border of Battalion 5, which was at PFE and Walerga Road. Unfortunate thing there were 4 or 5 mobile homes that were lost. And we responded to a structure fire, a house not far from where I live right after that, and it was an example of safe and sane fireworks that caused a significant amount of damage to a home. Embers got into a bush that nobody recognized. They'd left the backyard, and the bush caught on fire, and the house subsequently was on fire. It was mentioned the communications center and the dispatch heard them all day long and responded to a lot of. I think we went code 3 up Watt Avenue after it had gotten dark. It must have been 4 times, only to be pulled off. In support, I guess we were on our way to grass fires up in Battalion 5's area, but racing up Watt Avenue only to be called off and drive back and do it again about 25 minutes later, it seemed like. It was a very enjoyable time for me to be able to see the men and women of this department up front and close doing the work that they do, and it renews that faith I have in all of our employees and that respect that I have for the work that they do. It was a pleasure. Thanks.
Thank you. Director Pearson.
Yeah, just a couple of quick comments. With all those calls going, and you were there on the 4th with, the reduction in staffing that we have. I mentioned it last time that we dodged a bullet. It looks as though we were successful. I think all the fires that were on the 4th are now out, obviously. And so you could say that that was a success, but I would venture to say that there were probably some very stressful employees that we had on running on engines and BC units to these incidents, knowing that that's not in their jurisdiction, knowing that they're going to another area, and that if that engine was open and that house was open, there would be somebody there quicker and sooner. And that's gotta weigh on them. And then all the extra work that they're doing, you know, you can only work them so long. You know, I know, what was it? They just did a study for firefighters, and San Francisco took part in it, all the cancer rates that they have because of these incidents. The more and more exposure they get, the more chance they are going to have cancer. So the less firefighters we have out there, that means they're going to go on more fires. And that's just more and more exposure to danger. And I just want the public to know that even though our employees are doing a yeoman's job and they are just excellent at what they do, they're not fully staffed, and we're not okay, and that we need more, and we need more staffing, and hopefully the public will see that and ask us to put on more and give us the finances to do that. And that's it. Thanks.
Thank you very much. Director Scheidegger.
Thank you, Mr. President. I'd like to just quickly thank Mr. Davis and staff for their fine work in keeping these grant programs going. It's not easy to manage the grant, and it's not easy to manage the contractors that make it work. But I think this is an example of a very important program for this district. And I think it's great that we're able to sustain it, keep it going, and keeping it together through your hard work. Appreciate it. Also, again, just want to echo the other comments of thanking all of our staff for the sacrifices and hard work they're giving. The 4th of July is just one example. Our people are always there when they're needed, and we deeply appreciate it. Thank you.
Thank you. Director Monk.
I want to congratulate the recent graduates from the single role paramedic program that are online now, the 27 recruits. And kudos out to Brenda Briggs and her group for the 64 kids involved in fire camp. It's a fun time for the kids, and I hear a lot of kids are interested in future fire camps of being involved if we can work on that. The golf tournament coming up was mentioned at a meeting earlier, and I fully support Director Orzali and his group in putting that on. It's an excellent thing, and I challenge the board members to put together their own foursome for that at the Rancho Marietta North Country Club. Renita Young and the recent promotees in the audience, congratulations. A lot of people wait a long time in their careers to get promotions and pass tests to be able to get to that position. I hope you're not stopping there. Keep working, keep going. And congratulations to everybody in the district for what they did on the 4th of July. This is one of the rare times, because of the city fire at Cal Expo and everything, that having that helicopter made a big difference in putting that fire out. And not as a downer, but I hope we're billing them and getting reimbursement for the time spent with the helicopter there. And that's it. And thank everybody in the audience for coming tonight.
Thank you very much. And I'll take one moment here to notify the board members there will be a notification coming to you about the Foundation's golf tournament that will be just coming up August 29th, and asking for your participation, and also for you to promote participation through your friends that enjoy playing golf. It's going to be a great event, and we look forward to having you out there. So with that, seeing no further business, we are adjourned.